What's up, y'all? I want to make this video as quick as I possibly can. It's about the so-called Daniel fast. I want to tell you all that the Daniel fast is not a fast. It's not biblical. It's something that was made up. And a lot of people don't know that, especially those who really don't know the origin of it. They haven't really read the word for themselves. They don't know. They think that they're engaging in the actual fast when they do a Daniel fast, and this needs to be corrected, because we need to make sure that we're gaining all the benefits of fasting when we're trying to fast. So first of all, let's do some definitions. The definition of a fast means to abstain from food and drink. The definition of a diet is just the foods and drinks, the ingredients that you use that make up your normal diet, what you eat regularly. So the Daniel fast is not a fast, it's a diet. And where did this come from? I don't know who made it up, but just from my understanding of the scriptures, I can pretty much gather how it came about. So first of all, I'm going to take you to Daniel. So the book of Daniel. Now, Daniel was a young man who was in captivity in the Babylonian Empire under King Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel was one, he and three of his other friends or comrades, they were the best of Judah. So the king, he wanted the best of the best children. He said he wanted the brightest and the best. He wanted the most intelligent and the most gifted children in his custody. And Daniel and his three friends, which people call the three Hebrew boys, they were four of those children who were considered the top of the nation, the brightest and the best. And they were in the custody of the king. And the king, what the king wanted to do, he said he wanted to teach them, he wanted them to learn the Chaldean language. So the plan was to set aside 3 years and prepare them for 3 years of having the best diet and to learn the Chaldean language. So even though they were already the brightest and the best, the king's intention was to put them in the absolute best environment for them to thrive and to be at their in their prime, at their ultimate level. So in the first chapter of Daniel, the king ordered that all these children would eat the king's meat for 3 years. Now, what is the king meat? In this context, a lot of times in the scripture, when you see the word meat, it doesn't necessarily mean meat. Sometimes it just means food. So they were supposed to eat the king's food. I'm pretty sure in the king's idea, this was the best food. This was the food that was most highly sought after. But Daniel knew that this food was unclean. So they had a handler, and the handler, was supposed to feed them the best food there is, okay? And I'm just imagining the king's meat. I'm just imagining the richest food that you could think of. I'm thinking of smoked ribs. I'm thinking of macaroni and cheese. I'm thinking of greens. This is just my thoughts. I mean, anybody might think of that, but just whatever comes to your mind when you think of food that is very rich and that is highly sought after, but not necessarily clean and not necessarily good for you. This is the food that the king wanted them to eat. So Daniel, he heard that. He was like, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. And he already knew this food is unclean. I don't want to defile my body. There's no way I'm eating this for 3 years. Mind you, the definition of a diet is a food that you regularly eat. So they were changing his diet. His diet was going to now be this unclean food that he was not familiar with, that he knew was going to make him sick, that he knew was going to be a hindrance of him performing at his optimal level, because he is an Israelite, like he belongs to Yahuwah. He knows what he's supposed to eat. So Daniel told his handler that he didn't want to eat that. He was like, yeah, we can't eat that. Like, there's no way. And he said, look, I tell you what. He said, let us just eat pulse. And pulse is just food from the ground. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. So he said, just let us eat this pulse for 10 days. And after 10 days, you know, if everything's fine and we look good and you let us just eat that. The handler was like, hold on. Like, the king gave me instructions that you're supposed to eat the best of the best. And if you mess around and start looking, you know, skinny, then my head is on the line. But the handler had favor on Daniel. Said he favored Daniel. He loved Daniel. So he allowed him to do it. He was like, okay, you know, you go ahead. So for 10 days, Daniel and the other 3 friends, they only ate pulse. And it said that at the end of the 10 days, their countenance was bright. Their face was fat, meaning it looked healthy. And they were sharp in their mind. Their mind was even sharper. So once the handler saw that, he was like, okay, it was proven to him that they actually can do very well eating this kind of a diet. They don't have to eat the king's meat in order to be in their prime. So it was granted to them to maintain this diet. That was it. It wasn't a fast. It was a diet, okay? Now, I think that that's part of where people get the so-called Daniel fast, that part. So there's the fruit and vegetable part. And then there's another part. So, you know, Daniel was very gifted. He had a lot of dreams. He had a lot of visions. He was an intercessory prayer. He was an intercessor. So Daniel was praying all the time. You know, a lot of things were very profound. Things were revealed to him. Very profound. And how do we know how profound it was? We know how profound it was because it says that sometimes he would have a vision or he would get revelation and he would come into some knowledge that was so deep, something that would disturb his spirit so greatly that he would be sick. So in one instance, after he came out of a vision, he was sick for days, like physically sick for days. So, and there was another account, Daniel chapter 10, he had a vision, or, you know, he got this revelation. But after it, he said, and I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, no flesh, no wine. So 3 weeks, that's 21 days. So I'm like, is that where they get the 21 day thing? They got the fruit and vegetable, the pulse, and then we got the 21 days. Put that together. And then even this part, when it says that I ate no pleasant bread, even here, he wasn't necessarily trying to do a fast or anything. It says he was mourning for 3 full weeks because of what he saw in those visions, because of these prophetic revelations. He was mourning for 21 days. I ate no pleasant bread. Now I look right before the chapter before, he was talking about he was sick for days. You know, he was sick for a few days after he came out of a vision. So it sounded like to me for 3 full weeks, he didn't eat any pleasant bread because he was like going through a lot, you know. And you know, when you're mourning and when you are going through emotionally, sometimes food is the first thing to go. Food is not all that desirable. So you put these 2 things together and we got the Daniel fast. Now, the Daniel fast, people do this in churches every January. A lot of people say, okay, we're going to do a 21-day Daniel fast. We're going to eat only fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, you know, no meats, no dairy. And we're going to do this for 21 days for breakthroughs. And people do get breakthroughs. I've done it before. I've actually done it one time, and the one time that I did do it, that was the one time that I started asking questions like, wait a minute. I've always been a student of the word, so I wanted to know, where did this come from? Like, who made this up? And me knowing, like, reading the scripture for myself, I was like, that's not what Daniel was doing. So the first thing, you know, came to my mind, Daniel wasn't fasting. Like, it literally was, when he said that he wanted to eat the pulse for 10 days, it was literally to serve proof that he didn't have to eat the king's meat in order to be healthy. So it wasn't a fast. He wasn't trying to make a spiritual breakthrough. He was just trying to prove to this man, look, we ain't gotta eat this. Like, I don't want to eat that. I'm not about to change my diet. I'm not about to eat this for 3 years. Let me prove to you that you just want me healthy, right? The king wants me healthy. The king wants me on the top of my game. Let me prove to you that I don't have to eat the king's meat in order to be healthy and on the top of my game. So the Daniel fast. A lot of people do the Daniel fast. They do it every at the beginning of the I'm trying not to go there, but I'm gonna go there, okay? Because January is not the new year. Makes it even worse, because we're saying that we're about to do this diet. We're about to do this fast. That's not a fast. It's actually a diet, and we're gonna do it in January for the new year, and it ain't the new year because Yah said the new year was in March, or between March and April. It's in spring. The new year is in spring. So what are we actually doing when we're doing, we're saying we're on a fast when we ain't fasting, we actually on a diet in the dead of the winter, looking for a breakthrough for the beginning of the year? It ain't making sense. Now, let me say, because I know that people have done this diet and gotten breakthroughs. But why did you get a breakthrough? Here's a question. Let me tell you the question that I had. Okay, I'm always asking questions. So I remember I was in church and they did a Daniel fast, and I remember there was a piece of paper. They passed out a piece of paper, and they were like, the piece of paper said, "Eat fruits and vegetables, eat nuts, eat seeds," and it was like, no bread, no sweets, no potatoes, no meat. And it was this long list of things not to eat. And I was just like, I was overwhelmed by the paper, because I'm just like, man, like, why do we put all these things not to eat? What are we eating? Can we just focus on what we are eating and not talk about what not to eat? And I remember people were raising their hands. Raising their hands like, what about fish? What about this? What about flatbread? Can we have what about bread without leaven? Can we have flatbread? And I'm just sitting there. I'm sitting in the sanctuary like, what? Like, I thought we said we're going to do fruits and vegetables, so why do we have to clarify that a fish is not a fruit or a vegetable or a nut or a seed? So I remember getting frustrated with the paper, and I was just like, man, like, I don't need this paper. Like, I'm gonna just do it my way, right? So I participated in it. I didn't, I just ate both fruits and vegetables and things like that. And I did receive a breakthrough. I really did. Honestly, I really did. But I realized that the breakthrough wasn't because I was on the fast. The breakthrough was because for the first time, I abstained from meat and cheese for an extended period. And because that was the first time that I ever did that, I had a breakthrough, because something happened in my gut. Like, our gut is connected, like, to the spirit realm. It's very spiritual. Like, the foods that we eat is directly connected to our spiritual experience. So because I was doing something that was outside of my normal diet was overconsumption of meat, sugar, dairy, chemicals, that was in food, processed stuff. That was my normal diet. But for 21 days, I stopped that, and I started eating only fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, basically what we should be eating. So because of that, guess what? I was having all kinds of experiences. I was having dreams. I was getting revelation and understanding, and I was hearing from the Most High more. But I said like this, because I don't ever want to knock anybody, because I don't want people to be like, oh no, I had breakthroughs from the Daniel fast. I know, I believe you. But was it really like a spiritual breakthrough? Okay, were we really like waging war in the spirit and breaking up something? Or were we kind of getting delayed things that we should have gotten in the first place? Kind of like you're in a basement, okay? You're in a basement and your cell phone is not getting service, and you've been in a basement. You ever been like, you know, underground for, let's say you've been down there for hours, and then you leave that basement and now you're upstairs, you can get reception. And what do you hear? Ding, 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 ding. You start getting all these messages, right? You start getting, boom, two missed calls. Boom, 3 voicemails. You didn't get that when you were below ground because there was no reception. But now that you're up here where you can get reception from the tower, now you're getting notifications for all these messages that you should have already had. This is how I feel the Daniel fast is. I feel like it was so-called Daniel fast. I feel like that diet, what happens is when you abstain from meats and sugar, dairy, and all these things that you normally eat on like a standard American diet, what happens is you start getting reception that you didn't get before. You start hearing from Yahuwah in a way that you were not hearing from him, and what, not that he wasn't speaking, is that you couldn't hear him. So it seems like we're getting backed up messages. We're hearing things that he probably said a while ago. We're getting messages that were sent a while ago. We're getting understanding that really and truly the so-called Daniel fast is bringing us to a level of spiritual discernment, understanding, and revelation that should be our norm. Think about that. So, like for example, growing up, I remember growing up in church. I remember I was a teenager, and I remember I used to tell my dad, why do we eat unhealthy at church? Like, shouldn't we be eating healthy at church? And he said, you know, you're absolutely right. And he actually even encouraged me to like be vocal about that, to say something about it, which I did, but you know, it wasn't really listened to. But I was like, why is our church experience going into the house of the Lord, why is it connected to fried chicken, ham hocks, you know, everything got pork in it, it's green beans with ham hocks in it, and you got greens with bacon in it, and sugary sweet cornbread, macaroni and cheese, Kool-Aid. And listen, don't get me wrong, the food was the bomb. I loved it. It's nothing like those experiences that we had in the Matrix where we didn't know any better. It felt so good. The emotions connected with it. It felt so good. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I love the experience of having soul food at church and church mothers making it and people sitting down, breaking bread together, laughing, enjoying one another. I love that. And I wouldn't trade it in. But we gotta go higher. We gotta elevate. We ain't supposed to stay where we at. We're not supposed to go back to our vomit. But I was like, why are we eating this food? Like, should we be eating like healthy stuff? And my dad agreed with me, like, yeah, we should be doing that. So if you think about it, so the church will, and I'm gonna say it, you know, I'm gonna say it all the time. Food is deeply spiritual. Deeply spiritual. When we sit down together and break bread, that is deeply spiritual. Like, we're knitting our souls together. We're coming into agreement for different things. We're agreeing with each other. So if we're creating bonds over foods that's harming our body, what are we actually doing? So if food is spiritual and breaking bread together means that we're creating bonds, we're coming into agreements. Do we really want to come into agreements over ham hocks? Do we really want to come into agreements over cheesy mac and cheese? Like, that should not be the standard for believers breaking bread together. So churches would break bread together. I'm not saying all churches, because I know that you know, there were churches that were eating healthy. Like, I know about the Seventh-day Adventist church. I know that they were very big on healthy eating. I know they were very big on abstaining from unclean foods. As far as I know, they always taught that. But a lot of churches people who said that, okay, the body of Christ, you come together and you break bread over unclean foods that are full of ingredients that are fueling your diseases. And then in the dead of the winter on January 1st, that is not the new year, we're going to call it, we're going to appoint man's saying over Yahuwah's saying, and we're going to say this is the new year, and then we're going to do a Daniel fast. And just for 21 days, we're going to abstain from these foods that we shouldn't have been eating in the first place. And in those 21 days, ding, 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 you start getting breakthroughs. We got testimony after testimony, all kind of stuff going on. So it then reinforces to people that, yeah, this is the thing to do. This is how you get breakthroughs, by doing this Daniel fast. I saw that when I first seen this. I said, this is really dangerous. Seems harmless, but it's actually very dangerous. Why? It's very dangerous because it is teaching the body of believers that you can just do a fruit and veggie fast to get your breakthroughs. Like, you don't really have to fast like that. I'm not saying that, people who do a Daniel fast don't do a real fast where they're really abstaining from food and drink. I'm not saying that. Some people have that understanding. Some people, they might do a Daniel fast, but they also will regularly do a 3-day fast or a 1-day fast. But there are some people who think that this Daniel fast is a substitute, that it can take over, that it is sufficient. And it's not, because it's not even a fast. Like, you can't call something a fast that was never intended to be a fast and then use that to break up stuff in your life. Like, we're gonna use that to like wage war in the spirit realm? No. So a real fast is abstaining from food and drink. That's what it is. When you're truly fasting, you're not eating. Like, that's literally the definition of fasting. Like, the word breakfast means break fast. You're breaking your fast because you were fasting all night, and the first meal that you eat, you break the fast. So fasting means that you're not eating, okay? You don't chew on the fast. You're not chewing on the fast. And you're also not drinking juice on the fast. Now, I'm not saying, like, sometimes you might be on a fast. Like, you might be fasting and you may be too weak. Maybe you got something to do and you like, man, I'm too weak. Maybe you don't necessarily want to go eat a burger or go eat, you don't necessarily want to start back eating solid foods, but maybe you'll just be like, man, I'll just drink a little bit of juice to keep me going. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I do it. Sometimes, like, if I'm fasting and maybe if I feel like if I feel sick or if I feel too weak, maybe I got something to do and I need more energy, I might just be like, I really don't want to break this fast, but I can't just drink some coconut water. Like, that's usually my choice. Coconut water will keep me going so I don't have to break the fast. Nothing wrong with that. But we don't want to teach people that a fast includes juice or a fast includes food, because it doesn't. It's not fasting. But a real fast, like this, look at here. So Mark chapter 9, 17 through 29. In this account, Yahushua was out with his disciples, and the disciples were trying to cast a spirit out of, I think it was a boy. Now, mind you, they were regularly out ministering and casting spirits out of people. But this time, it didn't work. They couldn't cast it out. And so, at the end, they asked him, they're like, hey, why couldn't we cast that spirit out? And Yahushua, he said, this kind can come forth by nothing but prayer and fasting. There are some things that we cannot break in our lives unless we abstain from food and drink for a period. That's it. There are some things that you will never have victory over. I don't care how much you pray alone. I don't care how much you try your best not to do it. I don't care who lay hands on you. I don't care what bishop, prophet, pope. I got that from Kevin L.A. Ewing. You don't know about him, look him up. But bishop, prophet, pope, I don't care who lay hands on you. Some things only come out by prayer and fasting. And fasting means you ain't chewing. It means stop eating. It means you're not eating. So we got to stop this teaching that a Daniel fast is sufficient, because it ain't. It ain't even no fast. I'm going to call it the Daniel diet. The Daniel diet. And if you want to, listen, if you want to adopt the Daniel diet for your health, I recommend that you adopt that diet as your regular diet. But I do not recommend that you turn to the Daniel diet when it's time for you to hear the voice of Yahuwah. You really want to hear from Yah, and you really okay, it's the new year. When springtime hits, and in springtime we start coming alive, we start being full of inspiration. You want to clean up, you want to open a window up, you want to switch your clothes out. This is normal. This is a normal part of life, because things are springing forth in your spirit. This is the time to not eat so that you can hear from Yahuwah. This is the time to cleanse your soul. This is the time to wage war on the spirit realm and cleanse yourself of anything that doesn't belong. Daniel fast, Daniel diet, that is not a fast. We got to stop being afraid to fast. I used to be afraid to fast. I was scared to fast. And the way that I overcame being afraid to fast was by fasting. But I just built myself up to it. I was just okay, I'm going to do it for a full day. I'm going to try to do it for 24 hours. And then I would fail. I would break it. And then I'll be all right, I'm going to try it again. But I just recommend that people just start with half a day. So you don't have to, we don't want to turn this into a thing where you don't want to just jump into, I'm going to do a 3-day fast, and you ain't even used to it. And then you feeling defeated, like you displeased Yah. Like you displeased the Most High because you didn't go through with this fast. When we fast, the fast is for you. We also need to undo this idea that we're fasting to do Yah a favor. And I feel like this may have come from the Catholic Church, because there are teachers in the Catholic Church that it brings God pleasure when you are afflicted. He wants you to be poor. He wants you to be in poverty. This is how he will have favor on you. I remember I seen these some kind of, I don't know what they were, some kind of clergy, Catholic clergy, I don't know. But it's something very weird that they would do. I don't know if they still do this. Probably do. But they'll walk around with no shirt on, whipping their backs. I'm talking about whipping their backs with a real, I don't know if it was a cat of nine tails, but they're actually whipping their backs, tearing their own backs up, blood everywhere. And they said the reason why they were doing this, they were afflicting their flesh. And it brought God great pleasure to afflict their flesh. That's a lie from hell. It's a lie. Don't bring him no pleasure for you to tear your back up. It don't bring him no pleasure for you to tear your back up. And it's also not bringing him pleasure when you're hungry. But it does bring him pleasure when your body is at rest and he can speak to you, he can talk to you, and you actually hear him. That brings him pleasure. So don't fast with the mindset that you're doing Yah a favor. And also, if you break your fast and you are overwhelmed because you feel sick or you feel hungry and you go ahead and eat, don't feel condemned and feel like you disappointed Yah, like he gonna be upset that you broke your fast, like you're less holy. You got to build yourself up to it. Build yourself up to fasting for 24 hours. Build yourself up to fasting for 3 days or 2 days. Build yourself up to fasting for 7 days. Some people fast longer than that. And truly, And don't try to just fast for a long time just to be holy, okay? All right, let me read these scriptures real quick because this made me think about that. Matthew 6:16-18. This is funny, man. Y'all be laughing at the scripture. It says, moreover, when ye fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. That is so funny. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thy head and wash thy face, that thou appearest not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. So when you're fasting, don't just fast to look holy. Okay? Don't choose how many days you're going to fast so you can look extra holy. Your fasting, the number of days that you fast, is directly proportionate to what spiritual war you need to fight. And also the weight of your mantle, the mantle that is upon you. Yahushua was fasting for 40 days. I mean, look at the mantle that was on him. He literally took on the sins of our men. So yeah, 40 days, that was about right for him. And then like when you look in scripture, like John the Baptist, when he was fasting, you know, look at the mantle of calling that was upon his life. His fasting matched that. And when he wasn't fasting, he was eating a diet of locusts and honey. And his diet was the diet that he was eating was connected to the weight of his calling. Like, he couldn't afford to be missing no messages from Yah because he was eating no bread. So he was only eating locusts and honey, which is, to me, all I see is protein and some carbs. Protein, carbohydrate. It was very simple. He was eating that, and then he was fasting. And he was out, and he was in the wilderness. Wilderness where? Where it's quiet. Away from man. Away from the vibration of the hustle and the bustle of the city. So, how should you fast? What should you fast? How many days should you fast? Number one, build up your endurance. Build up your endurance so that you can fast for 24 hours at least. I think that you should fast on a regular basis. Try fasting at least once per week. And the reason why I say that is because a long time ago, it was on my heart to fast once a week. I thought that I was just thinking that this is at a time where Yahuwah was really leading me, but I didn't really know it was him. I thought I was just thinking of stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna fast once a week. And I was doing it, but I got away from it because I didn't realize that was his spirit leading me into how to like maintain a good connection with him, like how I should keep myself consecrated. I didn't know that, so I like let it go. But I also noticed that, like, when I watch great people, okay, and who I consider great, people who are tapped in spiritually, they're tapped into the best of themselves with teaching, with wisdom. I start realizing that these people don't eat every day. Like, I will listen to them, you know, all these are different individuals, and they fast on a regular basis. And I realized, oh, that's how they know so much stuff. Because you ever listen to somebody and their knowledge is just so like through the roof that you like, how can this person know all this stuff? Especially when they're young. How can they know all this stuff? Fasting. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's why he was telling me to fast once a week. So I got back to that. I got back to fasting once per week. That is my regular life, to fast once, one 24-hour fast per week. But I even add on to that, I'm also practicing eating my first meal later in the day, which is right now is like 10, sometimes 11. My first meal is at like 10 or 11 o'clock. My last meal used to be no later than like 6, but now I'm practicing not eating after 4 o'clock. And what's crazy is that I feel my absolute best that I felt eating between 10 and 4. And I don't even be hungry. Like, I eat at 4 o'clock and I still be up until like 9, sometimes later. I don't even be hungry. And if I do get hungry, I'll just drink something, but not eat solid food because I don't want to be digesting. But build yourself up to fasting that's right for you. And then also, like, I also would do a 3-day fast every now and then. I don't have like a regular schedule for a 3-day fast. I definitely would do a 3-day fast if I feel like, if I'm really seeking something from Yahuwah, if I feel like there's been an attack in my life. Like, for example, if I have a demonic dream, like, let's say you have a dream, eating in your dream, that's not good, okay? Like, if you have a dream, if you're eating in your dream, you're coming into agreement with something demonic. Look that up, okay? I can't talk right now. But not too long ago, I had a demonic dream. I ate something in my dream. I woke up and I was like, man, I'm mad at myself, right? Why did I do that? And me eating my dream, to me, that just represents a hole in my spirit. Where am I? Somewhere I'm not lacking. I'm not on my wall. That's why I was eating in the dream. What did I come into agreement with? But I was like, man, I woke up mad. I was actually mad. I was mad than a mug. And I was like, we're not eating today. So I didn't eat for 3 days. Because that was my way of, for those 3 days, I was coming against whatever that thing that I came into agreement with, repenting, praying, reading the word. So that's what I mean when I say I'll fast for 3 days every now and then. So I'll fast like if I'm under attack, if I'm really seeking Yahuwah for an answer, or like if I'm interceding for somebody, like for Esther, like, okay, like remember Esther when she went in unto the king and she didn't want to lose her head, so she had all the Jews, she was like, fast for me 3 days, fast for me. So those are my reasons that I would do a 3-day fast. I have not, at this point in my walk, I have not come to a place where I felt led to fast for more than 3 days. You might need to. You might need to fast for 7 or 10 or I don't know. But I just believe that how long you fast is connected to your spiritual life, your walk, what you need, the mantle upon you, and whatever strongholds you might be dealing with. So don't be afraid to fast. Start practicing fasting. Like, don't ever feel condemned if you break your fast. And don't be walking around looking sad. Don't be walking around with a sad countenance when you're fasting. Look, what's wrong? Oh, I'm just fasting. You have your reward. So that's all I wanted to say. The Daniel diet is not a fast. Yeah, you did get some breakthroughs because finally you cleaned your gut out. You had some backed up messages. But that's not a fast. Let's practice a real fast. And that real fast is when you ain't chewing. That real fast is when your stomach just go to rest and ain't doing nothing. You stop digesting. That's that real fast. Practice fasting, y'all. I'm Katila Yusri. I'm a distributor of wisdom for Yahuwah. I speak it, I write it, and I model it. Y'all have a good day.